In the very beginning, we are introduced to a group of conquistadors. Note at this point that the siren is watching from the lake, but not attacking anyone. As the conquistadors approach the lake, the deaf conquistador, Jibaro, sees a golden scale in the lake. Fascinated, he pulls it out of the lake, marveling at the scale and looks to see if anyone has seen it as well, proceeding to pocket the golden scale. He is distracted while the other conquistadors have separated and are being blessed by what appears to be the Catholic Church. It appears as the Catholic Church have hired the conquistadors to eliminate the Lake of the Siren and likely steal the siren's treasure. The conquistadors are sent on a death mission. After the gold scale are removed, the siren emerges out of hiding and begins her magical and fatal screaming. The siren, covered in her own golden scales and adorned with jewelry and other valuables, likely from her attackers and possibly own prey, uses her bejeweled body to her advantage, dancing in a seductive and disarming manner. The siren appears to collect the gold of those that she has killed, either out of shame for her own appearance. The conquistadors and the Catholic priests become filled with a crazed, magically induced lust, even attacking and killing each other in order to reach the siren, driven mad by their own greed and selfishness. The deaf Jibaro, unable to hear the siren scream, watches in confusion and horror as the other conquistadors are dragged to their deaths. However, Jibaro seems less concerned with the deaths of the conquistadors and Catholic nuns, and instead cannot keep his eyes off the siren before eventually attempting to flee. The siren, now realizing that the Jibaro cannot be lured by her screams, becomes fascinated and shocked. The siren has only encountered those filled with greed that she can easily lure to their death. Having never encountered a person immune to her screams, it appears that she believed Jibaro is different than the other conquistadors. Meanwhile, the deaf conquistador is still fleeing and gets knocked out in his attempt to run away. As when he wakes up, he ignores his injured horse, but takes the time to steal all of the gold off of it, leaving it alone to die. The siren, meanwhile, stalks Jibaro, observing him even in his sleep, smelling him, and ultimately laying down beside him. When the deaf Jibaro wakes up, he is startled by the siren, but does not appear scared, grabbing her in an attempt to stop her from fleeing from him. When he grabs her, several gold scales become embedded in Jibaro's palm. Realizing that the gold scale he picked up earlier in the lake in fact belongs to the siren and the value of her bejeweled body, Jibaro becomes even more greedy and pursues the fleeing siren, despite the danger it puts him in. The siren, realizing that he is not afraid, she attempts to lure him into raging waterfalls. The siren begins to seduce him and attempt to communicate her infatuation to him using her body. Once he is close enough, she begins dancing against Jibaro, and he quietly pulls a gold scale from her stomach, causing her to bleed but seems like she didn't notice. Distracted by her pursuit of Jibaro, the siren tries kissing Jibaro, accidentally hurting him in the process with her bejeweled tongue and lips but appearing to not care. Jibaro, now fully aware that sex is out of the question, prepares to strike. Using her intense attempts at seduction to his advantage, Jibaro pushes her back, kissing her a few times softly on the face as a further distraction ploy, and then knocking her unconscious. While the siren is unconscious, Jibaro violently rips all the gold scaling and jewels from her body, ignoring that it's harming the siren and causing her to bleed out. Once satisfied with his spoils, Jibaro pushes the siren down the waterfall as if she means nothing. The siren's body drifts back into her lake, and her desecrated flesh bleeds into the lake, causing the lake to become mixed with magical healing substance. Jibaro, still consumed in his greed and trying to haul the gold back to his campsite, which he can now claim entirely to himself, fails to realize that he has backtracked himself to the siren's lake. He drinks the bloodied water and finds himself able to suddenly hear, which causes Jibaro to panic and bring himself even closer to the lake. As Jibaro realizes that the noises are actually sounds that he is hearing, which is shown by him slapping his hand into a puddle of water and screaming, and then ultimately connecting the sound of the birds and the siren. Now regaining consciousness, comes out of the lake, and upon looking down realizes that in her naivety, She was violated, stripped down to essentially nothing. Realizing that Jibaro is just as greedy as the other conquistadors, the siren begins screaming in shame, pain, rage, and humiliation. Jibaro, now able to hear, cannot resist the siren's screams any longer, and is ultimately drowned by the siren. Jibaro, per the creator's comments, was an allegory about greed, toxic relationships, and colonialism. Because of the camera movement and how fast-paced it is, personally I found it to be a masterpiece, but I can understand how the stylistic elements plus pacing can cause confusion. The siren was born a monster, but it can be interpreted that she was largely just following her own nature, defending her own jewels and lake, while the conquistador, who was not born a monster, became a monster by his own greed. Even then, however, the siren is not without fault, inflicting her own pain on Jibaro with little thought and pursuing him for wildly wrong reasons, just as one would see in a toxic relationship. Thank you for watching.